Hello BookTube. The other day I reviewed Rasco and the Rats of NIMH, which is a sequel to Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH. And if you missed it, I'll leave a link in the description down below. But there is one more book in the Rats of NIMH series, and that is R.T. Margaret and the Rats of NIMH, which I have now read and will talk about today. So, Rasco and the Rats of NIMH. I mentioned that I had read this back when I was in 5th grade. I didn't remember much of it from when I read it in 5th grade, but I remembered having enjoyed it and I suppose have somewhat nostalgia for it. R.T. Margaret and the Rats of NIMH, on the other hand, I did not read when I was young. My library did not have this book, and in fact, I did not even know it existed until recently when I was looking up Rasco and the Rats of NIMH, trying to get a hold of this book, and discovered that there was actually one more book in the Rats of NIMH series. So, according to Wikipedia, this was published in 1990. It's by Jane Leslie Conley, who is the same author of Rasco and the Rats of NIMH, and the daughter of Robert C. O'Brien, who wrote the original Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH. And he unfortunately died. So his daughter was the one who wrote the sequels to the Rats of NIMH. So I did not enjoy this one as much. Although it's not terrible. It had some redeeming qualities to it, but there's a lot of awkwardness to it. Starting right away with that title, right? R.T. Margaret and the Rats of NIMH. That's a little bit of a clunky title, isn't it? Now, in this book, there are two lost children who are lost in the valley, and which their names are R.T. and Margaret, so that's where the title comes from. And the Rats of NIMH befriend the lost children. Yeah, so when I discovered what this book was about, I thought, oh no, the Rats of NIMH befriending human children. No, I don't want the series to do this, but this is where the series is going now. So there's a number of problems with this, and I guess the biggest problem is it puts a spotlight on something which has been lingering ever since the first book, which is what language are the Rats of NIMH speaking? Now, this has been, in my mind, one of those plot holes that has existed ever since the first book. But at least in the first book, you could shove it to the back of your mind. Here, it's coming to the forefront. Now, we've got to deal with this. What language are the Rats of NIMH speaking, after all? So, in the first book, all the animals were able to talk to each other. It wasn't clear what language the animals were using to communicate with each other. There was just some sort of common language that the animals all spoke to each other. Also, the animals were also able to understand what the humans said to each other. Not only the Rats of NIMH, but also the common animals, like Mrs. Frisby was able to overhear the conversations that the humans were having with each other and understand it. So it was always unclear if all the animals, well, apparently all the animals could understand English. All the animals were also speaking to each other in some language. I mean, I never imagined that the animals were speaking to each other in English. I just imagined, they were speaking to each other in animal sounds, and for the purposes of the book, it was being translated as English. But it was all a little bit awkward. If the animals, well, it was all a little bit unclear, really. With Rasco and the Rats of NIMH, there were a couple of hints that the rats could speak English. So there was a rat named Christopher who got injured at one point and almost captured by the humans. And one of the characters mentions that if the humans had gotten him and he had woken up and been confused and started speaking, then the humans would have realized that he was an intelligent rat. So that indicated that maybe the rats were speaking in English to each other as a result of their becoming intelligent. On the other hand, there's a plot point in Rasco and the Rats of NIMH when Rasco has got to stop some humans from doing something. And rather than yelling out stop, he grabs a pencil and writes stop, which seems to indicate that he maybe doesn't have the power to vocalize English, or chooses not to. I guess it's a little bit unclear. But in this book, the rats can talk English to the humans, and they can talk English as a result of the experiments that were performed on them. Now, even super intelligent rats would not have the ability to speak English like you and I speak English, because English, like all human languages, is predicated on a human vocal tract. And the rats just don't have the articulatory features to pronounce the sounds of English. Put that aside maybe because it's a children's book. But I mean, it still raises all sorts of other questions, like, can all the animals speak English? In the first book, all the animals could understand English. I don't know. The whole thing gets very messy. Like I said, it's a problem somewhat inherited from the first book, but okay. All right. Presumably, I guess in this book, the rats can speak English, and only the rats can speak English, and they can speak English because of the result of the experiments that was run on them. What was inherited in their children because their DNA was changed. So I think it's set up in the first book that the children of the Rats of NIMH have also inherited their special characteristics. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the other thing with this book is we're getting a little bit far from the vision of the first book. So the first book, although it really never developed it fully, had hints of what this new rat society would look like. In the first book, those of you who have read the first book might remember, Nicodemus at one point talks about what a truly rat society would look like. So not rats imitating human society, but rats just following their own instinct. And Nicodemus says, take the airplane and the skyscrapers. He says, these follow from the imagination of monkeys who live in trees and want to kind of continually go up. So they build skyscrapers to go up, or they build airplanes to take them into the sky where they see all the birds flying, because there are these monkeys living in trees. And, it's implied, of course, humans being the genetic descendants of monkeys. But he said, would a rat civilization build airplanes? Or would rats build their civilization underground? So instead of skyscrapers going up, rats might build these elaborate underground buildings, or tunnels and caverns and all this stuff going underground. So that's one thing that just gets floated out there in the first Rats of NIMH. And you wonder a little bit if Robert C. O'Brien hadn't died, or maybe if somebody else besides his daughter had picked up the mantle of the Rats of NIMH and had continued these stories, if we would have gotten more into the sociological or zoological aspect of these rat civilizations, how maybe the rats might have transformed Thorn Valley, how the civilization might have grown and spread, the various problems they might have run into with the civilization getting bigger or running up against the limit of the resources, the technology that they might have invented or coped with, what impact having these super intelligent rats out in the wild would eventually have, how far they could spread before humans finally found out about them, the different factions that might have developed. There I don't know, there's a whole interesting world to explore about what has happened now that we have these super intelligent rat civilizations out in the wilderness now, which is where we left off at the end of the Rats of NIMH. For better or for worse, though, Jane Leslie Conley has doubled down on the children's literature part of these books. So, like I said in my review of Rascal, even the first Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH book was written for children. But it was a book written for children that was focused on the adult world. Rascal and the Rats of NIMH shifted the focus to the child. And R.T. Margaret in the Rats of NIMH really focuses the attention on children now. So we've got two children who are lost in the wilderness. There's Margaret and her brother Artie. I don't think their ages are ever given explicitly, or if they were, I missed it. But Margaret seems to be in upper elementary school, like 10 years old or something. And Artie is before preschool, like about 3 years old or something. And Artie is nonverbal. I don't think, again, unless I missed it, that his condition is ever explicitly said in this book. But according to Wikipedia identifies him as autistic. And they get lost in the woods, and they are found by Christopher, and then later Christopher's friend, Raxo. So Christopher was introduced in the previous book, as was Raxo, and they are both the younger generation, the children of the Rats of NIMH, who have kind of childlike emotions, childlike brains, and childlike concerns. Now, to give credit where credit is due, I'm not sure it's an unrealistic portrayal of children. They do a lot of stupid things in this book. So, for example, when Christopher and Raxo first find the children lost in Thorn Valley, they want to keep it a secret from the rest of the rat colony, which is a terrible idea. But they like having secrets. They like having these children who are only theirs and only they know about and they get to take care of. And you think, oh, geez, you know, the whole plot of this book is being propelled by the characters just doing stupid things. On the other hand, you think, well, kids do stupid things, right? Maybe they would do that. Yeah, well, I'm addressing the problems with the plot. So, Margaret and her brother Artie get lost in the wilderness because they run off the trail when they meet a bear unexpectedly. This is like, I don't know, if we're listing off all the plot problems, this is another point to mention. The narration explicitly says that bears weren't supposed to be in this area, which presumably is why their parents let them wander off. But then they see a bear and they run off, and you're like, well, okay, but bears aren't supposed to be in this area. Are we going to come back to this, do anything with it? No. Never gets addressed again. There's a bear there, even though bears aren't supposed to be in this area. So, yeah, Margaret and RT run off, and then they try and get back to their campsite, but the more they walk, the more lost they get, until they finally collapse and spend the night in some sort of cave. Okay, fine. So they are, at most, half a day's walk from their campsite, right? And then we find out that there's a big search going on for them. There's helicopters looking for them, etc. Nobody can find them. And they don't actually move. They actually stay right where they are. Eventually they moved to the rat colony, but the rat colony is very close to where they were staying in the cave anyways. So they spend all this time just half a day's walk from their campsite. People are searching them for weeks and nobody can find them. I don't know. Well, what do you think? Is that realistic? I know the wilderness can be a big place, but okay. Then the second problem is, the children, the rat children, Raxo and Christopher, do stupid things. But then, even once the rat adults find out about these children, they just keep them next to the rat colony for like the several more weeks, like the rest of the summer. And then finally they take them back to the human colony, to the humans, as winter is approaching. But you think, okay, so Nicodemus, Justin, the rat adults, the leaders of the rat colonies, why did they not immediately start thinking about how to take the children back? Nicodemus, in this book, does a few stupid things, which is hard to square with his character. Now, to be fair, he also has some good scenes where he does act as kind of a wise counselor and calm center of reason at times. And in that way, I thought his portrayal was very much in line with the first two books. But there were some other decisions that he made that just didn't make sense. The other thing is he had Margaret remove a hawk's nest for him as a condition of her being able to get food from the rats. And it was a dangerous thing that she did because it involved scaling the side of a cliff. And you thought, Nicodemus wouldn't do that, right? He wouldn't put a child in danger like that. But he did. The children do a lot of stupid things in this book, both the rat children and the human children. To be fair, like I mentioned earlier, children do stupid things. It's one of those books though where it's sometimes hard to like your protagonists. For example, Margaret, the human child, when she first discovers Christopher, the rat, who has been trying to give them food and help them, she hits him with a stick that has thorns on it, and kind of chokes him until he surrenders and then takes him hostage. And you're like, Now, to be fair, I guess she does have a character arc where she kind of comes around a bit. She comes around fully. She does come around fully. I guess the question is whether this transformation is earned or realistic in the course of her narrative. She certainly starts off very unlikable. And you also feel frustrated with the rat children, who are also the main protagonists. Okay, so there's that. The other thing is, the book really suffers from a lack of forward momentum. So the children go and get lost in the woods, and then they get found by the rats and they get brought back to the rat colony. And you're like, okay, so the children have been rescued, story's over. And you're like, oh, we still have 2/3 of the book left. And so then the children are just hanging out at the rat colony, and the plot really isn't going anywhere. It's just talking about how they enjoy hanging out with the rats. It's talking about how Christopher, the boy rat, enjoys hanging out with RT, the I guess autistic 3-year-old, and that just kind of it's all right. There are some good passages here, but the plot just really isn't going anywhere. And then eventually the decision is made to take the children back to the human world, and they get back to the human world, and you're like, oh, okay, now the story's over, huh? But then you realize, oh, we still have 1/3 left of the book to go. And so then the children are adjusting to their new life. They feel sad because they've left the rat colony behind. They get visits from the rats. And again, it's like, the book just doesn't really have much of a clear plot. Or at least the plot doesn't really have much of a momentum going for it. That being said, there were some, I thought, emotional moments about the emotional connection that Margaret and especially RT, the young 3-year-old, have with the rats. Especially, RT and Christopher's bond. That struck a certain chord. The emotions there worked to a certain extent. You could kind of feel a little bit of like a warm, fuzzy feeling for how happy this boy and this rat were together. You felt a little bit sad when they couldn't continue their friendship and they had to part. You felt a little bit warm again when you knew there was hope that they would someday be reunited. So that part it worked okay. The book does tie in nicely with Raxo and the Rats of NIMH. I guess it's by the same author, so she's able to tie her 2 books together nicely. So, for example, the journalist who was exploring Thorn Valley in Raxo and the Rats of NIMH, her plot thread gets tied up, or at least continued here. She comes back to kind of investigate it more about the rats. Among the poor decisions the rats make, I mentioned they make a couple of poor decisions, but having the humans, they're supposed to be keeping themselves secret because they don't want the scientists at NIMH to find out about them. But then Nicodemus and the others just tell RT and Margaret everything. And then they, even though Nicodemus knows that's going to be very difficult for them to keep a secret. And again, this was not something I think they had to do. I think right when they found the human children, they could have immediately looked for ways to return the humans' children to their parents, back to human civilization, especially because they were no more than half a day's walk from their campsite, especially because they knew their parents were looking for them and there was a big search going for them. The rats even knew this because they were able to pick up the human news on their radio. So why they didn't just immediately try and return the human children. This is one of those books where a lot of the things that the characters do don't make any sense. But it's it's a book that's not geared towards adult sensibilities. So, yeah, Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH was a children's book that had stuff in there that could be intriguing to adults, even though there, like I said, there were some inherent inconsistencies even within the first book. But by this point, we are not interested in exploring the rat civilization, not interested in exploring the greater world or the conflict between the newly developed rats and the limits of how much they can expand in Thorn Valley. We're just focusing on the friendship between a 3-year-old and a little rat. Yeah. It's okay for what it is, maybe. If you can forget all the plot holes and you can forget all the characters doing things that don't make sense. The emotions in here more or less work. But part of me thinks it's too bad that somebody else didn't get the rights to continue the Rats of NIMH series and go in a different direction with it, in which we could have more fully explored just the world of the Rats of NIMH, or what would have happened when the Rats of NIMH colony expanded. That would have been more the story I would have been interested in reading. This is for better or for worse, the last book. There were the 3 books, and then they stopped writing. And I'm not actually sure why. I'm not actually sure if this one didn't do very well in terms of sales, or if people just decided a trilogy is good enough. I'm sure if it had sold really well, they would have made it into a longer series, right? I don't know, but for whatever reason, this was the last one. The third and last books in the Rats of NIMH series.